morning, ladies and gentlemen, Vice Minister, colleagues, thank you for the invitation. Let me congratulate colleagues for organizing such a wonderful event with a lineup of eminent speakers with very interesting topics to discuss. How to overcome mediation paradox. Should it be overcome, or should we look at mediation as a part of ecosystem from a fairy tale, maybe bringing it to life? So, okay. Let me start with this. In 15 minutes, I will try to present you Council of Europe and its European Commission for Efficiency of Justice approach towards mediation development. It can be summarized in 3 words: holistic, flexible, pragmatic. But first of all, Council of Europe is an international organization where we have 46 member states from almost all Europe, so it covers almost all European continent, with some exception of Belarus, Russia, Kazakhstan, and Vatican. So almost all Europe is united in that particular organization under the flagship of respect and protection of fundamental human rights. So the Council of Europe treats mediation phenomena in the context of human rights. And in recent 2 decades, more than 2 decades, the Council of Europe found out that mediation is a very important tool in safeguarding human rights. Then it is aligned with the principle of efficiency of settlement of disputes, and the human rights, then they are put in the first place and they're exercised properly. Mediation can also take various other forms of oppression, of distortion of human rights, etc. And these are not the forms, I believe, anybody experienced in mediation and promoting of mediation would be happy in, pushing forward. In recent couple of decades, Council of Europe, starting from the last decade of the last century, developed 4 soft law instruments dedicated to all the fields of dispute resolution, starting with family, then was penal, civil, including commercial and administrative. Council of Europe, a committee of ministers, adopted 4 recommendations with some guiding principles and some guidance to the member states, governments first of all of member states and all the stakeholders, to promote mediation, but reasonably, with due respect to all the main principles and standards, which are compatible with protection and promotion of human rights. In this decade, a little bit more than 15 years, the Council of Europe realized that only stating the standards and telling to the governments by one of the supreme bodies of the Council of Europe, such as the Legal Cooperation Body, Committee of Ministers, please promote it, please support it, please do something for mediation to be more efficient, it's not enough. And then the European Commission for Efficiency of Justice took a flagship and started developing what now we at the Council of Europe call methodology of mediation development. And this consists of 3 guiding strategy principles, guidelines on mediation development in all the fields, in civil, family, in administrative, and in penal or criminal. It provides strategy roadmaps for the governments and the mediation stakeholders how to develop mediation, how to implement this Council of Europe mediation recommendations. And all of them start with the notion that there are lots of obstacles. And by the way, this notion was found out by the research, by the study on what is the status of mediation in the member states of the Council of Europe at that time when these recommendations in the form of guidelines were adopted. Another point in these guidelines is recommendation for the governments to support and promote mediation, meaning that financial support is also important, and member states should finance mediation projects and programs. If they do not do so, most probably mediation will not be developing. If you introduce in your laws in any country that it's mandatory to go to mediation. Yes, it is a possibility, it's an option. So who will pay for it? If you say that party pay for it, maybe, but look at what the European Court of Justice says in our Zini case. No, 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 that's not possible. Only symbolic fee or free of charge for parties if you oblige them to go to at least the first meeting or to mediation before going to court. So that's also very important that member states and their governments, they realized that promotion of mediation also is associated with allocating funds, allocating resources, and not only fund resources, but also administrative resources. In the country in the world which is currently the champion of mandatory mediation in Turkey, they have at the Ministry of Justice a department dedicated for mediation with more than 30 state officials just at the top level of Turkey, supervising how mediation is developing and how mediation is monitored at the top level and only for private mediations. Criminal mediation, administrative mediation, these are different phenomena. Family mediation, they are not very much developed, but this is only this one. And there are lots of other officials at different levels engaged in mediation, supervision, monitoring, and supervising the system. So please point me any other country having such a large mediation department in their ministries of justice. Is it feasible? Is it doable? And there might be any other obstacles, even if introducing mediation, mandatory mediation or opt-out mediation, even if anybody goes that route, there are lots of pitfalls in the route down this route. So after the strategy guidelines, in another decade, CEPEJ decided to adopt 15 more instruments, specifically dedicated and based on the best practices, how to develop various elements of mediation. I will walk you through very briefly in the second part of my presentation. But before, let us very briefly look at these guidelines. I told you that one of the first statements is recommendation and advice to the governments of the member states to take care of promotion and support of mediation with very deep meaning. What does it mean? It means finance, it means administrative resources, and it means knowledge, yes? On the other hand, there are also some pillars that have to be developed. We borrowed these pillars and included in the Council of Europe document from English notion of AAA principle. AAA means availability, accessibility, awareness, and under each of these headings, there are lots of things to do in order to ensure that mediation would be available in the particular field, in the particular location for the particular litigant, that it would be affordable and accessible, and that the litigant or user or potential user of mediation will know that mediation exists and that he or she can use it or is obliged to use it. The Council of Europe at the top level of the organization, or, well, at international level, by the Committee of Ministers, by the European Commission for Efficiency of Justice, it also confirms such a roadmap for what the Council of Europe specifically can do in the field of mediation. So there are several points the Council of Europe thinks it would be useful for it as an international organization, how to support the member states, 46 member states of the Council of Europe, in the way of development of mediation and helping to overcome mediation paradox or any other obstacles which might lay in the road of development. The first one is new national legislation or upgrade of national legislation. Because analysis in that particular fields, it led to the conclusion that none of the legislations are perfect. You can never have perfect legislation, most probably. And there might be lots of things to do in order to have better legislations. Another point is efficient cooperation projects and efficient tools for development of very specific elements of mediation. Also, what's very important, and almost all European countries have this problem, is statistics, reliable statistics. Then at the Council of Europe, we try to measure, and we tried to measure in the past, the performance of mediation. Normally, you run into trouble, because there is no general notion how statistics shall be collected. And because of confidentiality of mediation, normally everybody runs into trouble how to calculate, how to count these numbers of confidential mediation. If you do not have a proper statistical pattern and KPIs included in the legislations or in the procedures how to calculate statistics, in fact, you have to make a policy decision with blind eyes, which is also not very good, not very wise. So that's why, from the international perspective, the Council of Europe advises member states to take due care of the statistics, and also presented some instruments how to help member states' governments and other stakeholders to deal with that issue, that problem. And the Council of Europe, by the CEPEJ, by the European Commission of Justice, they confirmed that the Council of Europe also should demonstrate the leadership in development and promoting mediation, because mediation is a valuable tool for increase of efficiency of justice. In this scheme, I very briefly summarized at least my understanding of some success stories, how they develop. You will not start, and you are not starting in the introduction of mandatory or in-court mediation. First of all, what you start with is taking care of AAA principle, ensuring availability, accessibility, awareness. Have a clear vision, but before that, you have to prepare mediation infrastructure. You have to have something there, or to design, to develop there. Then the particular infrastructure is prepared. Only then you start to channel the proportion of numbers of disputes into the system. If you channel there too much numbers, the system will fail. It will not, work. If you channel the numbers which are not sufficient, but the system is strong, is prepared, you also have a problem. For example, Turkey, in 2004, then they called for the Council of Europe for their advice and help how to solve their problem of mediation paradox, because they had quite strong at that time mediation infrastructure and system, but no mediations. At that time, in 2004, they have around 4,000 mediations per year in private disputes, and almost 4,000 mediators prepared. So can you imagine this proportion of numbers of mediations and mediators? And at that time, Turkey's Ministry of Justice had a team of around more than 20 people dedicated to the Ministry of Justice, of development, mediation, promotion, etc. So can you imagine frustration of Ministry of Justice, doing lots of awareness-raising exercises, other things, but nothing works. So magic was done, and currently mediation, Turkey mediation system produces over 1 million mediation cases per year. But we have also some problems. And these problems have to be taken care by adjustment of the system, improving it, calibrating it, because it's also very important. For example, in the beginning of introduction of mandatory mediation, settlement rate in Turkey revolved around 50%. Currently, it dropped down to 30%. With some, no one knows what factor would be. Who are the main gatekeepers of mediation? At the Council of Europe, in its documents, in the CEPEJ documents, it is noted that lawyers and judges were one of the main gatekeepers, but not only them. It is interaction of various stakeholders, where lawyers and judges play key role, but also legislators. If legislators will allow lawyers and judges be good gatekeepers and allow mediation taken, they will go that route. If they demotivate lawyers or judges, that might be a problem. For example, in Turkey last year, Council of Europe still provides some assistance to the Turkish Ministry of Justice in calibrating their system. There was an user satisfaction survey, quite representative survey, which provided many valuable findings. But one of the findings I want to put you down here, that even in mandatory mediation system, The legislators ask litigants to go to mediation before going to court. Their main source of information about mediation are lawyers. More than 50%. So if lawyers will be demotivated, will not lead their parties to mediation, that might be a problem. Currently, as I told you, in Turkey, the settlement rate dropped down to 30%. And some lack of motivation of lawyers might be one of the issues there. And the Turkish Ministry of Justice, what we do now, we try to investigate what are the problems and how to go forward. By the way, judges, in that particular system, their importance in providing information to the parties about mediation is less than 1%. But not in all the systems. For example, in Lithuania, this figure might be much higher because in Lithuania we have quite efficient and quite popular court annex mediation program, in-court mediation program. So if you do the same survey in a different country, the judges motivate and refer mediation very much. Most probably you will have a little bit different figures, but still, if you do the survey, lawyers will be the top persons to go to and to ask about mediation. So what the Council of Europe, European Commission for Efficiency of Justice, did in order to allow the member states to go forward and to develop their various elements of mediation system to strengthen their so-called mediation infrastructure. In 2007, it started to compile and it launched the first version of Mediation Development Toolkit, the various tools dedicated to specific elements of mediation, such as, let us start with, it was not the first tool, but European Handbook for Mediation Lawmaking. It's a very comprehensive tool of more than 80 pages, based on analysis of more than 18 jurisdictions in Europe, and taking into regard some jurisdictions all in the world, including Mediation Convention and some others. Yes, so you can find there many answers how mediation laws shall be developed and what can be done in order to improve them. Mediation awareness raising. Lots of various tools dedicated to lawyers, judges, notaries, bailiffs, how to train them to instrumentalize mediation in their daily life, in their professional activities as judges, as lawyers. And there are specific tools as well, how to encourage use of mediation for lawyers and for judges. Lawyers need to develop new professional practices friendly to mediation if they understand how to integrate mediation in their professional activities toolbox and toolkits. If they do not know how to do it, what we'll be doing? We will be opposing mediation. And what will happen? Even if you introduce mandatory mediation, settlement rate may be low. If judges do not refer efficiently parties to mediation, you might have a problem, even with introduction of mandatory or opt-in or opt-out systems. High quality of mediation is another key word, and the Council of Europe tries to help member states to improve this. And the high quality of mediation starts with training, good training of mediators. So that's why it's very important, and what you're doing here with your mediation tournament, with your educational programs, is one of the utmost importance in ensuring high quality. Another point is already mentioned, statistical, good statistics and statistical KPIs. Council of Europe also provides some guidance about harmonizing the process with model agreements and model feedback questionnaires. And the last tool in the line, but not the least, and there are some in the pipeline, such as promotion, mediation, and administrative disputes, which is also very hard and tough questions, because in many countries in the European continent, they do not understand how to use mediation and administrative disputes, starting with that they do not recognize settlement agreement value in administrative disputes. So this is an answer for the legislators, for the governments, for policymakers. If they do not understand how to use it, you can start with reading the document, and maybe it might help you. And there will be more tools, by the way. Most probably in December will be a tool dedicated to online alternative dispute resolution adopted by the CEPEJ. So to keep track record of that. And as I told to you, it's a notion, and doing various researches and service, it is recognized that intake of mediation is rather low. But in order to overcome these obstacles, holistic, pragmatic, and flexible approach, it is needed. And in every country, normally, their cooperation programs of the Council of Europe is performed. You normally observe various elements because mediation is a very delicate phenomenon, lots of moving parts. In some countries, one pattern is a good story, a good example of best practices. In another country, if you transplant it without adjustment, without adaptation, it can fail. It cannot work. So that's very important to take care and due care of details. Thank you.